Good evening, Rabbi. Recently, I watched your video about reading non-Chabad books, the teachings of the Ramchal, etc. I consider myself a Lubavitcher and I get your point, but at the same time, I am a pluralist. One of the reasons is that I'm a Baal Tshuva, and I never had a chance to master Hebrew or Yiddish. I can read Hebrew and understand Yiddish, but my vocabulary is too limited for me to be able to read lucidly in Hebrew or in Yiddish. The problem is there's not enough Chabad books available in English. Some books are out of print, some get reprinted years later, while Art Scroll and Feldheim offer English-speaking readers a lot of Sfarim in English. I love reading, and as I already mentioned, there's not enough Chabad books available in English. What do you think a person in my position should do? You know, the question that I was asked was not, what do I think about reading the Ramchal? The question that I was asked was why there seemed to be a bit of an ambivalence about reading Sfarim that have to do with Musar and Kabbalah that are outside the Chabad parameters. We're living in an orphan time. This is a truly Judaism. The kind of great Hasidim and the kind of great people that were quite common generations ago are diminished. And the result of that is that there is a substantial leadership vacuum, and so many people like you and like me are trying to navigate their way in the world. They're trying to figure out how to best serve Hashem. There's an enormous number of Jewish people who are very sincere, who are trying to figure out how to be Yidden to the best of their abilities, and they nash, they try this, they try this, they try this. They're just looking for some clarity, they're just looking for some meaning, they're just looking for some inspiration, and they're just looking for something that they're able to relate to. Honestly, I would not tell anybody not to read a Sefer if it's Torah and it's kosher. It's not my place, especially in these times. In general, when someone is involved in a good thing, for someone else to come along and say, Ned, don't do it, they have to A, know that person very well, B, they have to care about that person very deeply, and C, they have to have very, very pure motives in discouraging a person from reading that kind of material. What do I think you should do? I think you should do what you're doing. I think you should do what you're doing. Honestly, here's how I feel. I feel that we're living in an age where, in general, delineations that separate communities in terms of hashkafa are becoming very, very vague. They're becoming very hazy, very nebulous. In other words, people who 40, 50 years ago would have stuck to the teachings of their rebbes or their particular group are becoming more and more what you call pluralistic. They're gnashing more and more. And there's so many from Jews, not only Baalei Tshuva, by the way, who will tell you, I take this from this movement, and this from this movement, this from this Chassidus, this from this Chassidus, and these from the Litvish, and this from this Fadim. Personally, it bothers me. It bothers me not because I have a problem with it. It bothers me because I think people need to be deeply connected to their relationship with Hashem, and to be deeply connected to relationship with Hashem, I think you have to have one path. If I may say this in provocative words, people say that the huge divisions that used to be between different groups and the animus that may have existed is becoming less and less, and there's much more openness, and there's much more tolerance, much more understanding. Avos Yisrael is a very, very good thing. But being proud of who you are and knowing clearly who you are as a Jew and as a Chassid or as a Litvak or as a Sfadi, I think is very important. And a lot of that is getting lost. The real reason is because there's a lack of great Gedolim who stand for a particular derech strongly, not in a way that pushes anybody else down, but in a way that focuses on their derech. In other words, I think it would be right if a Lubavitcher would know what it means to Lubavitcher and be very loyal to that Shita, not because he has a problem with anybody else, but because this is his path. And to have a relationship with Hashem, you have to have a path. I would say the same thing for a Satmar Chassid, or for a Litvak, or for anybody else. The idea that people have a strong sense of identity and strong roots makes their Yiddishkeit very deep. The idea that we nash and we try a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and we celebrate with Avos Yisrael, I think there's something superficial about that. It's what the times are. This is what's happening in the world right now. And I don't go around telling people not to do it unless they ask me. In other words, this is the world we live in. I will repeat the statement that I said before, which is the most important. There are so many very sincere, very beautiful Jews who are trying to find a path. And for whatever reason, they don't have one. They don't have a very powerful teacher. They don't have a very powerful mashpia. They've had disappointing experiences. It could be 1,001 reasons. So there's a lot of this. You're not unique in being a pluralist. I just think that it's very, very important for you to be honest with yourself. Personally, Chabad has a deep shita, a very, very deep shita, that's very involved and very encompassing and very distinct. And if a person is going to be a true Chabadnik, he needs to learn Chabad Chassidus, and he needs not just to learn Chassidus Chabad, but he needs to the avodah that Chassidus Chabad is about, which includes, amongst other things, avodah tefillah, a certain approach to davening, a certain approach to Yiras Shamayim. It's a hard derech. It really is a hard derech. And to be quite candid, because it's a hard derech, it has a narrow target. It doesn't really serve that many people because you have to have a certain personality, a certain kind of mind for it to work for you. But there is such a thing as a strict Chabad derech. The Lubavitch today is doing so many things that are beyond the narrow derech of what Chabad is. It's very open and very pluralistic. This is what the Rebbe wants. But it doesn't take away from the Chabad Chassidus in its traditional form. Or to give you a really radical, a really sensitive example, it's the whole question of going to other tzaddikim, of going to other rebbes. Is it a sin? Of course not. Is there a place in the Chabad tradition to only go to our rebbes? Yeah, of course. But it's based on a deep understanding of the Chassid Rebbe relationship. It's based on a deep kind of spirituality. So you have to decide who you are. And after you decide who you are, honestly, then you have to live your life based on those decisions. But you can't have the cake and eat it. You can't be open to all kinds of drachim and expect to be a person who belongs to Lubavitch in the narrow sense. It doesn't work. I also want to say there's a very, very big difference between information and the derech and avodah. They're not the same. You can read all the books in the world. You can study every sefer of Musar, every sefer of Hakira, every sefer of Kabbalah, and understand it as an idea. But in terms of your avodah is one path. And you have that option also. So I just want to repeat what I said at the outset. I would never tell someone, don't learn a sefer. It's just not my style. I was asked why we don't, and I addressed and I answered that. And I hope I answered you, and I hope I answered you in a useful and a satisfactory way.